right. Welcome to the show, Jen. I'm absolutely delighted to have you here. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
As some of my listeners might know, we're in the midst of our Women in Leadership series, and I'm delighted to have Jenn Saunders-Haynes here from Subway to talk about everything from why food is like music to why some conferences are better than others to why she's so involved in the Women in Leadership and Hospitality movement. And I'm delighted to kind of unpack these and learn more about her. So um, I always like to start the pod by asking my guests to introduce themselves as well. Warm up the mouth, warm up the brain, ease ourselves in, so to speak. So, Jen, without further ado, do you mind telling us a bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, of course. So again, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here and I guess share about me and what I do and like I said, why I'm here. So I'm Jenn Saunders-Haynes. I'm the director of Global Catering at Subway here in Miami. How I got here, geez. So I'll start with with I think how I landed in food, which I think is a good story. So I was working in operations, and before joining Subway, I was at Focus Brands, who is now Go To Foods. At that time, it was catering operations, and then operations got shifted to marketing and back to operations. And so, I had my feel of kind of going around about a little bit with catering and then landed at Subway. So that's kind of how I ended up here.
Yeah, and I mean, and then, like to be in like a global catering kind of role as well. Do you want to explain like what that kind of entails as well?
Yeah. So a lot of people, when they hear director of catering, I think for a lot of regional brands, director of catering primarily means selling catering, which is a huge part of what we do. So I have a sales team, and we do drive catering sales. Again, that's really why we're here, right? To drive catering sales for the business. But outside of that, it is catering strategy. It is understanding the business, understanding the guest, and understanding what we can do to be better, not just in the U.S. but also in Canada and in our cross-functional teams across the entire world. So I work very closely with my partners in other regions when they're looking to launch something for catering, and we partner on how they can get the right packaging and what our best practices are here in the U.S. so they can adopt some of that for themselves. So it's really fun. I get to meet a lot of people from around the world.
That is awesome. That's awesome. It's actually, in the town I'm from, a small little town in the southwest of Ireland. There's a number of subways, so
Yeah,
like it blows my mind just like how many there are. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
like how you in Miami can have an impact on somebody in a small town in like Ireland or like someone in
Mhm.
like you know, East Asia or in Africa or South America that
Mhm.
people are coming to you with like questions for concepts, packaging, whatever. I
Yeah.
mean, it's actually kind of an insanely kind of creative role almost. Like you
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
like,
It's super exciting, and I think the most exciting moments for me is when we do create something in the US and then, unknowingly I see a packaging element or something that we've created here all the way on the other side of the world. So, it's really fun and super exciting to see those things develop for sure.
yeah, that's awesome. And like, when it comes to like, I mean, it's such a kind of impressive background, career trajectory that you've had. I mean, objectively, anybody listening to this go look at Jen's LinkedIn. It's actually like it is actually unbelievable. It's great. And
Thank you.
you know, like the way like and leading into like sort of, the women in leadership kind of style of things here, like kind of while we're here, kind of your kind of take on like sort of the whole initiative. Like when we were chatting offline, last week when we were doing our prelim call, like you used the phrase like you specifically sought out the women's chamber of commerce
Yeah.
in Miami, not just like that is like almost like separate to the men, because you really wanted to be around like-minded women. Like
Yeah.
yeah, can you talk us through like any thought process there?
Yeah, so for me, it's really important not just to be around like-minded business professionals, but also get the opinions of other women in leadership. I think in general, women face a different set of not, I won't call them rules, but they're different things that we have to keep in mind as we advance our careers in a corporate setting. And being around other women that can share stories about how they've navigated that and how they've succeeded to get to where they are is super important. And so when I was exploring chambers and who to join and where to join to really get my bearings here in Miami, because I've only been here 2 years, and a sense of community has always been really important to me. Um,
Yep.
so in navigating that and navigating chambers, I was like, okay, I can go to the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce, which is amazing. But then when I found the Women's Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce, immediately I was like, this is where I need to be. And so I remember joining, and then I went to an event, and the event was amazing. So every year, the prom event for the Women's um, Chamber of Commerce of Miami-Dade is the Thelma Gibson Awards. That was my first event. I met the board there, and then this past January, I was inducted on the board myself as the director of membership hospitality. So that's how important it
Awesome.
is to me, and that's how much it meant to me, and that how amazing that event was. So I encourage anyone in the Miami-Dade area to check us out. They can email me directly. I'm on the board. I'm happy to introduce you to my crew and get you signed up. So it's really been an amazing journey.
Yeah, that's awesome. And there's so much there. Like, you moved to Miami recently. When I say recently, in the last
Hmm.
like 2 years.
Yeah.
And amazing that you knew that you wanted to kind of get involved in like the community, knowing that you're kind of coming here for a long time and getting like identifying chambers of commerce, not just like for everyone, but like specifically like women centric ones,
Hmm.
to be around like minded women, not necessarily in hospitality as well,
Hmm.
but to find like just great leaders in the place. And now, like, I mean, so many doors must have opened for you already. Like, you must
Hmm.
have connected with some great people,
Yeah.
like, or made great introductions for other people as well.
Yeah.
Like, pay it forward, pay it back kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and that's what it's all about, like creating those relationships and really, solidifying those bonds. So, one of the members on our board, we had a board meeting not too long ago, and we talked about really the trust factor when you're building relationships, and it's really about what you can do for me, and how can I trust you, and do you really want to have this relationship with me? So relationship is huge, and even in what I do every day with catering and in the off premises world, it's all about relationships with our guests. It's why they keep coming back to us. It's why they you know trust us. That
Yeah.
it's all of that. So it's super important. And shout out to Alicia Bennett and on our board who shared that with us, that little nugget. But yeah, she's amazing, and that little nugget was amazing. So I keep that in mind as I go about my day.
Totally. And like, for like, say, the women or for anybody listening on this pod, like, well, like, you would like really implore people to like get up, get out there, get to your like your local chamber of commerce, whether you're in Brooklyn, New York, or
Yeah,
whether you're in Miami-Dade, or whether you're
yeah,
in LA County,
yeah,
like to
yeah,
get up there and go
yeah.
and just get involved. Like, do you think like, I mean, you must obviously, so I'm here for you to say this, but like it like there's a bigger onus. Like, do you feel like there's a bigger onus on like, I guess like being a woman than being a man to like really get involved? To like, you mentioned the kind of little things that like kind of in your just already in the chat, you kind of mentioned like there's a different kind of set of rules for women than there kind
Yeah.
of are for men in the space. Like, this is an area that like you can get an edge in as a woman, basically.
Yeah. So it's important that we come together as women to help navigate the space, right? And then also we have to be aware of what is going on within us and within our communities so that we can help each other. So I think the onus is really on us taking responsibility for being the best that we can in the space. I know sometimes things get tough as women in business, and I'm sure they get tough for men in business too. I don't want to, discount what you all go through, but I think it's important for us to have a community or a village that can work together. And then really like for me it is not just thriving as a woman in business, but being a minority woman in business, being a Black woman in leadership. It's really important to me. It is who I am, right? It is who we are as a family. My sister is an attorney, and she runs the or co-leads the her ERG group for the Black attorneys at her firm in
Yeah.
Boston. So it's who we are as a family, and it's so important to give back, like you mentioned earlier, and really use whatever tools and resources you have to help people navigate the spaces that they're in to the best of their ability, and always lead with compassion and love and grace, and try to be as understanding as possible when things just don't go your way, which happens to us every day, right, as people, as human beings. So those things are super important, and anytime I can share and help build community and village, it's always going to be important to me.
Yeah, no, I mean, firstly, I mean, I'm like, it's so humbling hearing you say all that. You know what I mean? It's amazing, and I mean, kudos to your parents and your siblings for like
Yeah,
raising you the way
they're
you were
cool.
raised. I mean,
My parents are
clearly
pretty cool.
they had an enormous influence on you, an enormously positive influence on you. And it's like radiates through the headphones and it radiates through the screen. Um, and you mentioned, not only just being a woman, but also like, being, like a woman of color in the workplace today. I mean, like your success is incredibly inspirational for anybody kind of coming up to the ranks, knowing that it's always possible. Do you know what I mean? That like, I'm like the data like will suggest that like, not only do women in leadership and hospitality kind of struggle for leadership positions, but even
Mhm,
more so for like women of color, specifically like,
mhm.
black women. And so my question to you is like, do you like you it seems to me like you could really like carry like a almost like an inspirational kind of vibe. You're like, yeah, I'm on a mission here. Like you seem very mission driven, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Like you're very
yeah.
aware.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I think that's a good way to put it. I think, it is my mission in life, my life mission to make sure that I'm doing my part. And, my husband and I talk about this often, but it is, and I've said this and I think on a few stages and panels before, but it's like, what is my legacy and what will people say about me when I'm not here anymore? What will they say about me at my eulogy? And anything that I can do in this lifetime to help people know that my mission was really to help other people, is what I want to do, and it's super important to me as a life purpose and a life mission, and life purposes and life missions are things that evolve over your over your life, I think, and I think at this point in my lifetime that's really what I feel like my purpose is, and so I'm happy to continue to do that work. And the work is not, it's not pretty. It is sometimes a thankless job, but it's what keeps me going. And really what it is, who I married. My husband has that same drive. It is my family, and ultimately it is who I am.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. And like being so cognizant or aware of like your own personal mission, making it your
Hmm.
mission. Like, and I think about this a lot, like just like for young up and coming people, regardless of color or creed or
Hmm.
background or
Hmm.
gender or whichever, is like, you know, ultimately you're not going to know what like your mission is
No,
not defined for
no,
everybody
it's a
at the
life
same
work.
time.
No,
It's like a
yes,
life work,
yeah, it is.
like,
It's a life
and
work, and it constantly changes. Then you will find yourself in different groups and surrounded by different people at different points in your life, depending on what your life purpose is at that particular time, right? So if you're focused on something, then, I feel like the universe puts different people in your life for different reasons. And, as you move through life, that continues to happen. So, aside from the Women's Chamber of Commerce of Miami-Dade, I'm also involved with the Prosper Forum, which is
yes,
an extension of my life purpose, right? So the Prosper Forum is really about driving diversity and inclusion specifically for hospitality and restaurant. And so being on the advisory council for the Prosper Forum and being a Prosper accelerator on that forum and really getting to be in the rooms with some of these people that have done their life work and are able to help other people get to where they are is really an amazing thing. And it's fulfilling, right, for me personally, but also rewarding in a way that I'm lucky enough to be in the same room as some of these people that I admire and respect so much and learn so much from, right? So, um, you know, it's an amazing. Again, if you haven't heard about Prosper Forum, it's definitely something that you want to check out. It's really the work that they are doing is just amazing and driving awareness for the lack of diversity in our space. It's really amazing.
yeah, no, totally. And I mean, like, yeah, we're big fans of the Prosper here in Landed ourselves. We were there cut short last year due to the unfortunate hurricane that happened on,
Yeah.
I think, on day two.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we'll be back in force, in all likelihood. What, in August, I think, isn't it? Or is it
Yeah,
August?
August
Yeah,
and Amelia Island.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, on the Amelia Island, exactly. Yeah,
Mhm.
not far from us right
No,
now. As
no, not
in,
far, not far.
when I
Just
when
a
I was living in San
drive up.
Francisco, I was like, "Oh my god, I gotta fly all the way there." Like that
Yeah.
is like as far away as possible. Um, but like to your point, I mean, like, and this is one of the reasons why we wanted to do our women in leadership sort of series anyway, which was like shedding light on sort of what topics that made me people feel kind of uncomfortable, but
Yeah.
like very much wanting to like acknowledge that these sort of like structural biases exist, whether people have an opinion on whatever their take on it is. Like the
Yeah.
data doesn't lie, like I was saying, one of the very first episodes I did was with the founder of the Food Service Women's Alliance.
Mhm.
She's down in Mississippi. Oh, actually, Julie, I'm sorry. It could be Mississippi or it could be one of those states down there, but like, I'm calling you out as a positive thing. But we talked about this, and like very much like we leaned into like we had a big data discussion on like like women in the workplace, in particular in hospitality. But like some of the stuff, like I mean, the data, like I think I just want to call out some data points here, and this is
Yeah.
from McKinsey and Lean In, and from their most recent report. And just like for context, I mean, just the numbers, like here we go. Okay, so 40% of Black women report having needed to provide more evidence of their competence. 40%. I mean, that's unbelievable. You know what I mean? That's like it's fat. Like I
Yeah.
mean, just unbelievable. And that's reported. Do you know what I mean? How many people are just internalizing this and just like not saying
Yeah.
something? 41% of Black women report having their judgment questioned in their area of expertise.
Mhm.
20% of women report having been mistaken for someone at a much lower level. And
Mhm.
26% of Black women report having heard someone express surprise at their language skills or other abilities. You
Yeah.
know?
I think on that last point, the one of the most disrespectful things you can say to a Black professional is, you speak so well. Um, I've heard that probably my entire life,
That just
and
makes me so uncomfortable.
that
So
that
just that if
last
someone would say that.
you would be amazed, and I know
Yeah.
that it is offered as a compliment. I
Yeah.
know that there is well intention behind it. And so, I've had to receive that as a compliment, but also there's some education that goes into that. And that, would you say that to a person that was not a minority? And the answer is usually no. So, I just, that last point was definitely something that resonates with me, and the other points as well. And it's something that you're right. There are a lot of people that internalize those questions and don't want to answer them because of the question itself, right? So if there's a question about, have you ever been challenged on your area of expertise? you know, there is
Yeah.
a knee-jerk reaction to not answer that question because, we all deal with our own imposter syndrome things and our own unconscious bias and deal with our own like all of these things are happening in our brains. And so when people ask that question, whatever your initial response is, the first thing that you may do is say, "Oh, I don't want to answer that." Right? So, it's tough.
What Yeah, and I mean, when you hear this, I mean, we're in the year of our Lord 2024.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure you saw like that viral post that from RLC last week, that basically suggested that a lot of women felt that they were very uncomfortable at the conference.
Mhm.
And it kind of took on a life of its own on LinkedIn, with a lot of people kind of raising their hand and saying, I saw
Mm.
stuff happen like that as well. And I think about that in the sense that, like, the more I've done this series, by the way, the more educated I feel.
Mm.
Not that I feel like I was uneducated before,
Mhm.
like I started the conversations, but I'm like incredibly, like infinitely more sympathetic to the entire experience, because in my head, I always thought we're in 2024. Like this stuff can't be happening. As in,
Mhm.
on a practical level, I've only ever seen one case in my entire career
Mhm.
of something that I would deem as like formally inappropriate.
Mhm.
And I'm like shocked. You know what I mean? Like I did,
Mhm.
like those data points like shock me that I mentioned there from the McKinsey Lean In report. Seeing that viral message last week about people being uncomfortable at a conference in
Mhm.
2024, restaurant leadership conference. And I
Yeah.
don't want to understand it. I mean, I like that, but like that viral tweet is something that a lot of people are talking about, and it's a lot of talk on in this forum here that I have. So like, I'm curious, like when you think about like sort of your role as a leader in this space,
Mhm.
like as a kind of, role as a I want to phrase it as a role as a leader in this space. I almost don't want to diminish, like, say like as a woman, as a female
Mhm.
leader, or as a Black woman
Yeah.
leader. It's like
Yeah.
almost like itemizing it, and it's like, no, you're just a leader no matter what.
Yeah.
Like, so like as a leader in the space, like kind of, what can we do to kind of like the proactive things we can do to kind of eliminate
Yeah.
sort of the patronizing, condescending
Mhm.
kind of environment that clearly the data shows that people that
Yeah.
women of color experience in the workplace.
Mhm. I think you nailed it when you first started talking, and that was education, right? It's educating yourself on what is inappropriate, and the education comes from having experiences with people that don't look like you, right? And so we had somebody come into the office a couple of weeks ago. His name is Al Vivian. He is amazing, and he helps companies on their diversity and inclusion missions and their journeys. And one of the things that he said is, surround yourself with people that don't look like you, that aren't from the same place you're from, that don't think like you, and afford yourself the luxury of having those conversations because they are priceless, right? Like when you're in a room with people that come from a completely different background as you and you remove your unconscious bias, or you are at least aware of your unconscious bias, and you work through those conversations even when they're uncomfortable in a way that makes sense for both of you, you walk away from that conversation with a better understanding of who that person and potentially their community, who they are and who they are as people and the struggles that they deal with as people and why things are so important to them that you may not even be aware of. But if you surround yourself all the time with people that look like you, sound like you, are from the same place that you are, you lose that. And as we continue to evolve as a country and as a people, we need that. Like we would be lost without it. So it's important for me to surround myself with people from all different ways of life so that I continue to help myself grow in that way. And I think everybody should do that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like I was I mean, like this indisputable sort of like comment, you know what I mean? It's like I just am always like, I guess like I'm just in that sort of perplexed phase of my kind of conversation on this topic that I feel like I read such like appalling data,
Mhm.
and I'm shocked by it, like the data I mentioned earlier
Mhm.
there. I'm shook by that one, like kind of RLC viral LinkedIn post. I'll send it on to you, or I'm not sure if I want to put it in the episode notes. People can just look it up themselves, but like it's there. It's not really disappearing from the internet anytime soon. But like, like it's you know, I had a conversation yesterday, and somebody said there's a big difference between being an ally and being a man ambassador.
Mhm. Mhm.
And a man ambassador is somebody who kind of will tweet about it or go on LinkedIn
Mhm.
and write a post about it, or
Mhm.
like public facingly
Mhm.
kind of do something. But like the ally will actually be the person that's actually like in the meeting, aware that somebody's being condescended to, or be
Yeah.
aware that somebody is witnessing
Yeah.
whatever is happening, and being an ally in that moment. And that phrasing resonated with me because I was like, yeah, there is there is a fundamental difference between being an ally and a ambassador.
Yep.
And you want to lean into the ally camp. So like,
Yeah.
if you're hearing this now, like, I mean, how would you suggest like, you know, anyone to be
Mhm.
like an ally in this sort of cause and movement? Like if we want to bring down 40%,
Mhm.
of black women report having the need to have more evidence of their competence. Okay. How do we get that
Mhm.
to 20? Like how
Mhm.
can we like be an ally, more of an ally? Like what are the things that people like should, need, ought
Yeah.
to do in the workplace to kind of like help alleviate that sort of
Yeah, yeah. I think the number one thing you can do as an ally, and I'll speak from my own personal
yeah.
experience, it's always important to have somebody in the room that can advocate on your behalf. If you are in the room with somebody and you see something and you know it does not feel right, it doesn't seem right, if that person is visibly uncomfortable, an ally is the person that would be like, is there a different way we can talk about this? Is there a different way we can look at this? No, I think that that person is capable of presenting their own material. So those are the things that make allies important. It's kind of like if you see something, say something, right? That we all learned in school. It's kind of that
Yeah.
same thing. It's really important that allies do that work. And the other responsibility I think that allies have is to have those conversations and you know be a voice when that person is not there. So I have an expectation of my allies to if I'm not around and they hear something because we've spent time together and they've been educated on what some difficulties are in our community or as a black professional, when I'm not in that space they can say, "Mm, that's not really true. This is what I understand that to be." right? So that is the definition of an ally, in my opinion. And like you said, an ally is not. You can repost and retweet and or re-X or whatever it's called now, all the things. But having an active part in that conversation and the improvement of those numbers is what makes an ally successful.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I mean, that's the thing. And I think like, you know, turning over rocks, you might not know what you'll find. Like we got data that I just want to shed light on,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why we're having these conversations and giving airtime to these kind of conversations where, otherwise they might be restricted to a conference, or whichever.
Yeah.
This is like this is an artifact that's going to live online, and
Mm-hmm.
that like, hopefully people see and it resonates with. And I mean, it certainly resonates with me. I mean, I'm like, every time I have this conversation, I'm like just bowled over. Like
Mm-hmm.
I hear personal anecdotes. I hear, we
Mm-hmm.
talk about data. You're telling me like, I mean, you're so like, honestly, like it's kind of remarkable. Not like that. And I want to phrase that in the right way, in the sense that it's not like, oh my God, you're so remarkable. Look at you. It's like, no, what I mean is like, and like I meant at the beginning of the show, like, I mean, look at your LinkedIn, you've had like an incredible career. Like, I mean, it's been awesome. And you're like such a go-getter, like getting into the chambers of commerce, like getting involved in like boards and that kind of stuff. Like, you have this sort of like confidence from within you that like irrespective of like gender, creed,
Mm-hmm.
color or whatever, like
Yeah.
you're getting there no matter what. And so like what I feel like from you is like, you're just like you have that sort of force within you, that fire within you to like make yourself a success, and it's kind of coming from within you as well. And I just love the fact that your mission, the way you articulate the sort of mission driven element of it, to be like, yeah, like I want to fly that flag,
Yeah.
like as in
Yeah.
and be the person, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And it's like
Yeah.
almost
It's
like you're like
it's
a star
important.
athlete or something,
It's important. It's important that you have that fire in your belly, but it's important that you do it for the things that are truly important to you. If you
Yeah.
have a fire in your belly about whatever it is, right? If it's not about this particular thing, whatever it is, then take initiative and drive whatever that is, right? And push it forward and do it with your whole heart, right? So my husband tells me that all the time. If you're gonna do something, do it with your whole heart. Don't be in and out. Just if you're gonna do it, make a decision and do it. We're also both Capricorn, so we share that. And I we said it's funny that our birthdays are 10 days apart. But I'll tell him something, and then he'll tell me the same thing, and I'm like, did I just tell you that, or vice versa? So so I married my twin in that sense. But yeah, like if you find something that you love and that you're passionate about, and you find it as part of your life purpose, and it resonates within you, do it with your whole heart. You make it something that means something to not just you, but to people around you. And then what will people say about you at your eulogy? Keep that in mind, right? Are they going to show up and be like, they were a great person, but you know, they're a great person?
That's all we have to say
Yeah,
about that person.
yeah, exactly.
They were great.
They
They
were
were
great, and
just
it's
great.
great to be a great person.
Yeah, it's
Everybody should be
fine.
a great person.
I mean, you hope somebody
Yeah,
shows up, I mean,
yeah,
that's like
exactly.
that's really the baseline,
Yeah, exactly, exactly. No, but yeah, it's important. Do it with your whole heart. Have whatever fire in your belly. Just let it. People should see it before you open your mouth when you walk in the room. You shouldn't dim your light for somebody else. So whatever your light is, let it shine as bright as you need it to shine, and make sure it doesn't dim. That's super important, right? That's super important as a woman. That's super important as a Black woman. It's just whatever your light is, don't dim it.
I mean, I need to have that advice as well as when I walk into a room. I guess everyone would say to me, Alex, please dim somewhat. But you're like, I'm blind. I'm like an LED light. Like you're blinding the rest of us. It's like, let us talk.
Don't dim it.
Uh,
Let it shine.
no. That's why I have the podcast. The podcast is a real humility maker for me, because it's like I have to let somebody else talk. My colleagues are like, he talks way too much. My friends and family even more. But one of the things like and I kind of like nicer, like on a kind of lighter note as well. Like one of the things we talked about was, at the beginning of this call and in our call last week was, like how obsessed with food you are, and
Mm,
like what a foodie you are. And I thought you made just a great comment, that you were like saying, food is like music. And
yeah.
it's interesting, A, because you married a musician, but analogy of like food is like music was very fascinating, and it kind of
Yeah.
speaks to your sort of personality, and it speaks to like the mission and the career and everything you do. So you want to tell us a bit about like why you think food is like music, and like
Yeah.
take us down this path, take us down this path.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I was a little girl, we one of the things that I remember about specifically Sundays after church was coming home and having like this full spread, right, of a meal. And I remember like my great grandmother baking pies and putting them in the windowsill to chill or cool. I remember my grandma making peach cobbler, which is one of my favorite desserts outside of banana pudding. But I remember all that, and I remember our family gathering and just sharing food and creating memories. And if I think about all the memories that I have with my family and my friends, I can remember what I was eating because food was an important part of every one of those situations. And so I think in our lives, we end up in certain places for certain reasons. I ended up in food because that is my love. And food is one of the things that brings people together. If you think about what you eat, and I relate it to music because you can listen to a song, it can be in any language, you might not know, where it came from, who sings it, even understand the lyrics, but you have this emotion about it. When we go to a ballet or an opera, we have this emotion, and you'll start crying at an opera not because you recognize the song or the words, but because you have an emotion. And food has that same it does that has that same effect on people. You have an emotion from what you eat. If I eat peach cobbler today that tastes like my grandmother's peach cobbler, it makes me cry because it makes me think about my grandmother. So that's how important food is in our daily lives. And the seat in which I sit now at Subway, I'm able to cater food to people that are having experiences. They may not remember that it was me who catered their food or my team that catered their food, but they're going to remember that experience, and they're going to remember they had Subway at that experience. So I'm there all the time. And that's what makes me excited about food every day. And that's what will keep me in this space for as long as, God willing, I can be here.
I love that, and it's so true. I mean, like, I think like breaking bread with people is just such a
Hmm.
great phrase, and it's just a great way of kind of
Yeah.
like, I mean, the phrase "break bread," like what? It's
Yeah.
like it's a Christian Jesus
Yeah.
phrase for like
Yeah.
what he did, and it's like,
Yeah.
what do we use the phrase for now? It's like peace offerings, you know
That's
what I
right.
mean? And it's
That's
like,
right. That's right.
and sitting down with people and just like breaking bread and like hanging
Yeah,
out
having
and whatever.
conversations and creating memories and, doing all those things. And I was fortunate enough to, marry a musician. He has a beautiful voice and plays
Lucky.
instruments, and it's not even what he does professionally, but every now and then he sings me a song or two. So I get lucky.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, with the music, that is.
But yes, yes, with music.
And we're now in the inappropriate zone of the podcast. Um, okay, here's something for you. What is
Yeah.
your favorite item? What's your favorite sandwich to get at Subway? What's your
Oh
favorite
my
sub to get at
gosh.
Subway?
Oh my gosh. So what's funny is that we just introduced some new wraps. And so there is a chicken salad wrap on the menu that is so good. like like if you have not been to a Subway since the launch of the new wraps, okay, this is my Subway plug for the day.
Go for it.
The
We're here for it.
chicken salad chicken salad wrap is amazing. So it's chicken salad and it is on lavash bread. It is so
Oh, on lavash bread.
yes,
So
it is
now
so
we're
good.
healthy now. We're healthy now.
It is so good. So please go and check it out. And then we just rolled out this sidekicks. So we have churros and footlong pretzels. So if you have not been to a Subway recently, please go and have a chicken salad wrap and a footlong pretzel and thank me later.
Okay, good. Because I have not been to Subway in a while. Maybe about a year, I'd say. But
Okay, so
I think
go.
a year would make me relatively habitual. Like if I go once a year, I mean
Okay,
that's
okay. You got to go
good.
more often. I won't
I
hold it
gotta go
against
more
you.
often. But what would you think is my order?
I mean, now that you said how much you enjoy a good lavash, I think that you would definitely go for that. I don't know about the
Okay.
chicken salad so much. There's a honey mustard chicken, maybe if you're a honey mustard guy.
Oh, you're so
Maybe
off. They're so
Oh,
off.
okay, what is
I'll
it?
tell
Tell
you.
me, tell
Yeah,
me.
so when I walk in, I go foot long. Boom.
Okay,
Okay, so I'm not going for any like small little sub here. I'm going for the actual one. I'm
okay,
going for the full foot. Then
okay.
I go Italian herb and what is it again? What's the Italian
Oh,
herb bread?
Italian urban cheese. Yes,
Herb and cheese. So I get
yes,
that bread,
yep.
and then I go.
Oh
I
gosh,
get the
I'm afraid.
meatballs.
Okay,
Meatballs.
okay.
Meatballs
That's
are
a
so
staple.
key.
It's a staple.
It's a staple. I think it's an
Yeah.
underrated staple. And then I get some cheese and some olives, some red onions, and there's
Olives,
that.
olives on the meatball.
Yeah, I know. But like,
Okay,
yeah, this is
okay.
where we're at. I mean, I didn't say I went to culinary school here. I'm ordering, I'm ordering I'm ordering. This is what you get when you offer a
I mean,
build your own sandwich. It's like, yeah, there's some olives in there, some red onions, and then you've got that Southwest sauce or Chipotle sauce.
yes,
What is this?
Chipotle
And,
Southwest. Yes.
and I put some of that in there as well, and then
Okay,
that's
that
the
that
sandwich I
is
get.
very unique.
Yeah, like it's me.
It
And
is
then you
very.
guys, you have a meal deal as well in there. I think I get some chips. I get some
You can
chips, and
get chips. You can get some
I get a
chips.
drink.
So,
Yeah,
are
and
you
then
like a Miss Vicky's jalapeno chip guy, or are you like a sun chip kind of guy?
Sun chip.
Okay.
I was gonna say fucking adore them, but like it's just like I love those. They are
Okay.
so good.
So
Like yeah,
yeah, get your sun chips, get your very unique meatball sandwich. I think we have honey oat bread is back. I don't know if you're a honey oat guy or you ever were, but
I've
it
only ever had that bread, and I've
okay,
only ever had meatballs.
okay,
And
okay,
because there was
okay.
none near me in college, like or where I grew up,
Oh,
like there
okay,
was only
okay.
so many Subways. And I remember a
Yeah, yeah,
friend of
yeah.
mine was like, the meatball football
Okay.
footlong was like the thing. And I was
Yeah.
like, I guess this is what I'm having now.
Okay.
And it's
Well,
like
I encourage you to visit a Subway and try some new things, not your meatball
there's one
concoction.
like 2 blocks from me, I think. There's
You should
one on
go.
Biscayne. There's
You
one
should
on
go.
Biscayne. Well, not
Yeah,
from Wynwood now. It's like
yeah,
80 degrees. It's like 85 degrees outside.
yeah.
But I'm gonna get a parking fine for this podcast as well. So like, I guess I mean if I'm gonna spend $55 on a parking
You
fine, I might as well do that.
might as well get a
Maybe
Subway.
there's a discount. But here, I think Jen, like one of the last things I always ask people is just a bit of advice for people.
Yeah,
And like what advice would you give people like to encourage like, you know, more women engagement or like
yeah,
more black women engagement in the
yeah,
workplace or fostering a better culture or environment for like
yeah.
women to thrive, like what would be a bit of advice you give anybody listening?
Oh gosh. I think the best advice I can give um, is to be aware, be open, um, listen more than you speak, um, be mindful of what comes out of your mouth, um, and really focus on being an ally. And allies can come in any shape or form. We can be allies to other people, and other people can be allies to us. So, as you navigate whatever space you're in, um, just remember the things that words hold value and what you say to people, words mean things. So just be mindful of what you say and how you say it and try to say everything with grace, even when it's difficult.
Oh my God, you're an absolute legend. You
Nah.
are amazing. I mean, my God, I can see why you've done so well in your career and why everyone speaks so incredibly highly of you. Like
Well, thank
Jen,
you.
you've been such an amazing guest, and thank you for being so candid, so honest, and taking me on this journey with you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, there we go. That was it.
Yay.